This is a half lock fold, which happens whenever there's a stretch and pinch happening on opposite sides. While this is incredibly common in a lot of drawings, it's just barely scratching the surface because this is only one of the 6 types of cloth folds I'm about to show you. I'll also dive deep into studying how these 2 industry pros express the weight of different fabric materials in the drawings and share some insanely useful drawing exercises to practice them with 5 levels of difficulty. All to make sure that you don't sound like this again when you're drawing clothing.
I guess there's a wrinkle here, right?
Let's go. Before we move on to the rest of the fold types, let's actually look at the nature of fabrics and how they work. Fabric is kind of a weird thing to draw. By itself, it's shapeless and is soft enough to follow the shape of whatever's inside of it. It's kind of like in between liquid and solid, where it can fit the shape of the wearer but also has its own shapes on top of that. This can make it incredibly confusing to figure out for beginners. I know this looks very intimidating, but the easiest way to think about folds is there's always a stretch and a pinch point. We call this tension points. It's either something is pulling or something is squishing the fabric. The squishing part is what creates the folds. Otherwise, the fabric would just stay straight under the influence of gravity. Subtle foreshadowing here, but because this word is going to be very important later on. So just using Kuro's work as an example, you can see most of the tension points are usually areas near the joints. The elbows, shoulders, hips, and knees are always hotspots for the folds to happen. As mentioned earlier, a fold that happens in one of these areas usually involves a side that pinches the folds and the side that stretches them. You can think of gravity as a source of tension point here. With gravity pulling down on the fabric, the excess fabric on these sick-looking baggy jeans usually drops and gathers around the ankle. This is fold type number 2, called the zigzag, and you can usually find them at the back knee part of the pants due to compression. You can see them here on the sketch by Rhino. Same thing happens with the shirt and sweater here, where the fold naturally gathers around the waist because of extra fabric folding at the hip bones, forming the same zigzag pattern. A little bit of anatomy knowledge needed here. So since we understood how all the fold types roughly work, I would just speed through the rest of the fold types because I think they're relatively similar in nature. There's the pipe folds. You can find these on curtains and the pleated skirts we all love. With these, you have multiple tension points on skirts is due to the stitching, where they do this sort of thing. I don't know how to explain it by words, but essentially it's like making a dumpling where you fold the fabric in together like this, creating the flare out effect of the skirt. The predecessor of the pipe folds is the drop fold. A pipe fold is basically a repeated drop fold, but a drop fold is more free-flowing and can have more variety in shapes because it's not connected to other tension points. And then you have the spiral folds, which can look like triangles or X's sometimes. They happen because the fabric is wrapped snugly around the body and squished together, like a pulled up sleeve or a tight shirt on the torso like this. And finally, we have the diaper folds. I don't know why that name really, but these are created when the fabric is hung on 2 or more tension points, creating these C curves at the bottom of the fabric as gravity pulls them down. So like here, for example, when she's lifting her sweatshirt. Sorry, got a little distracted there. But tension point 1, tension point 2, therefore you get the diapers folds here. Looks like a smiley face. Now, at this point, you're probably thinking, well, these seem simple enough, but how do I actually apply these in practice though? First of all, having good references are key to this because the key to drawing convincing looking folds is to understanding the fabric types, which we have yet to talk about. Different fabrics creates different folds, the thickness of the fabric, the materials the fabric is made out of, and the stitching patterns all affect the appearance of the folds you will get. That's why when you're looking at your reference, you want to pay attention to all the points we discussed so far. Now, this might be slightly overcomplicating things, but that is what we do here on the channel. If your fabric is both hard and thick, the folds will be sharper, creating more of a triangle shape. But at the same time, the size of the folds will also be larger. A classic example of this will be leather or denim. If your fabric is soft and thick, like the super cozy looking wool sweater here, the folds will be again larger because it's thick fabric, but the folds will look rounder and fluffier. And of course, thinner fabric just means smaller folds. Kuro sketches always have this hard and angular lines, so the clothing on the character feels very thick and hard. Whereas if you look at some of these sketches from Rhino, the clothing looks a lot thinner and softer because there are more tiny folds and the rounder silhouette overall. So in a real demo here, first I looked at the reference and identified where all the major folds are, and from here I want to actively make decisions to keep or eliminate certain folds by trying to create good shape language. The silhouette the folds create shouldn't look like they're evenly distributed across like this. Like this part, I will want to smooth the silhouette out, and then it goes to more of a zigzag here. For the pants, I'll actually want to ignore these folds right here and only focus on these ones, just because I feel like it will look a bit cleaner this way. And as you can see, it's essentially a big square for the torso here into this weird triangle pentagon shape for the sleeves, and then squares for the rolled up part here. Understanding this is just 20% of the work, because if you don't practice them, you'll never learn. But just be warned, these exercises are not for the faint of heart. So level 1 exercise is a really good exercise to practice how to understand the shapes of the folds. You are basically drawing a cloth draping over a basic shape. Doing this will help you understand roughly how the drop fold works, and depending on the shape you choose, you get different number of tension points. I recommend starting with the sphere just because it seems like it's the easiest, and then you can also move on to cylinders and cubes, and with those you can practice all sorts of different things, especially the cylinder because it kind of looks like a limb. So here you can practice the spiral folds and the zigzags. You can find a lot of these references by just googling them, and as you get more advanced, and this is level 2, you can start playing with tension points. The basic for this level is 2 tension points, so we're essentially practicing the diapos here. But as you get more comfortable, you can play around with the height of the points, you know, or stagger them like this. And if you really want to, you can also add in a 3rd or a 4th point like what I'm doing here. So now that we have the shapes of the folds down, we can take it one step further by rendering these folds. Because if you look at Kuro and RINOTUNA's work, lines aren't really the best way to show the intricacies of the fold details. If you use too many lines to indicate the folds, they'll only look messy and too crowded. So instead of spamming lines on these areas, for example, we should look into how to use values to communicate these form changes, just like what Rhino is doing. As long as you did the level 1 and 2 exercises and really understand how all the fold type works, this part is just a slight extension from that. Remember guys, 80% of your gains come from these drawings right here, so if you take away anything from this video, it's to practice these. But yeah, from here you want to think about from big to small. What I mean by that is to figure out what the big flow of the fabric is like first, then you move into the more intricate shapes. Usually that looks like figuring out the silhouette of the clothing first, and then you add in the finer folds on top of that. And here in level 3, same exercise, but we're not rendering the thing in values. Also, we're using a much more complicated shape underneath, like Pikachu or whatever you like really. And of course with these it's hard to find any references, so it's very likely you'll have to draw them from imagination, which is the whole point. So because of this, level 3 is significantly harder than the previous levels, but at the same time you're gonna learn a lot more from it. I find the blur tool especially useful in these rendering stages because you can lasso this or draw with a brush and then blur the edge of the smooth side, creating this crease transition that you see in all types of folds. The texture of the fabric can vary a lot depending on the materials, so can the folds. I didn't really talk about this earlier, but how the clothing fits on the character can also affect the appearances of the folds. For example, tighter clothing tends to have smaller creases and sharper folds, whereas looser clothing tend to have these drop folds and more flowy looking chunky folds. At this stage, once you're comfortable with the basic type of fabric, and that's usually cotton because it just looks very standard with its glossiness and texture, you can start exploring other fabric types like silk or leather, which tends to be more on the shiny side, or denim is also a really popular one. So in level 4, you can practice rendering the texture with a sphere like this, or even better, using the drapes over a sphere practice that we did on level 1. The thickness of the clothing can also affect how light interacts with it. If the clothes are thicker, like in these examples, they tend to reflect light a lot better. But if it's thinner, sometimes it can be see-through or have a little bit of subsurface scattering like this. In the character design case, it's always a good idea to define the materials your characters are wearing. I think this makes it way easier to find references or organize yourself when working on the design. And then finally, we arrive at the final details to add in. Stitching points of the fabric is more important than you think in these cases. They can create lots of little folds and add additional tension points to the fabric. This, I mean, can only be learned through repetition and looking at lots of different references. So level 5, the final level, and I highly recommend doing this, is to go study lots of different fashion models on Pinterest or whatever site you're using. You can do it like how Rhino is doing here, just drawing the clothes, so you can focus more on that, you know, instead of wasting 5 hours trying to get the face right. One of my personal favorites is Harajuku fashion. You can just search that on Pinterest just because of the sheer variety and creativity they have. You can literally learn so much from them. Embroideries, printed text and graphics, and other design details you can add on top of this base to make the clothing more appealing and interesting. But this is of course touching more on character design, and it's like the next level compared to what we have been doing. And these are my studies. What do you think? A huge thing that will help you learn cloth folds quicker is to know the forms underneath very well, which is why anatomy and folds are kind of inseparable. You have to know what the structure underneath looks like to know how the clothes hang off of it. And lucky for you, I have videos on anatomy that you can check out after this on the screen right now. Subscribe. Bye!